Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a concept that I think for most of us feels a little restrictive. We're talking about order.
Mm-hmm. Bureaucracy, rules, rigidity. That's usually where the mind goes.
Exactly. But the source material we're looking at today, these excerpts from the Architecture of Enduring Stability, it presents this beautiful, almost paradoxical argument that just flips that whole idea on its head.
It really does.
We're starting this deep dive with a philosophical hook that I think should immediately recalibrate your perspective. It's this: order does not control creation, it allows it to endure.
It's a powerful line.
And it really outlines our mission for today.
Yeah.
We're going to examine order not as that heavy hand of restriction, but as the foundational element that you actually need for real growth and stability. We're trying to get beneath our usual ideas about rules and structure to explore where true enduring systems really come from, at least according to this text.
And it's so important to set the stage here because this isn't about, top-down corporate management or some blueprint that's forced on things.
Right.
It's more of a philosophical history of how successful systems, be they natural or organizational or even cosmic, how they find their footing. And that core paradox you mentioned is key. How structure, when it's done right, doesn't limit freedom. It actually creates more of it.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of a foundation. The text starts by describing this phase where, all this initial energy and brilliance was maybe a little chaotic.
Scattered.
Scattered, yeah. It says, with wisdom guiding action, creation began to settle into rhythm. Movement no longer felt scattered. That suggests a huge shift, where raw energy starts to harmonize with insight.
That phrase, movement no longer felt scattered, is so significant. Scattered movement is it's inefficient. It's energy wasted on friction.
Fighting itself.
Exactly. So the move to rhythm is the very beginning of efficiency. The system is finally starting to work with itself, not against itself.
So if creation began to settle into rhythm, that implies a search, right? A kind of seeking out of the best tempo. This isn't some manager stepping in and imposing a deadline. It's an internal organic shift where the system itself finds consistency.
Precisely. And this gets us to the most vital distinction in the whole text. The difference between finding patterns and imposing rules.
Okay.
If we impose rules, we're forcing an external shape onto a system, and it might not fit. But the text is crystal clear on this. It says order did not arrive as rigid control.
And if it were rigid control, we know what happens. The first stress test comes along and the whole thing just breaks.
It's brittle. There's no give. Instead, the text says order emerged naturally from understanding.
So order isn't the prerequisite for things to work.
No.
It's a byproduct of understanding how they already work.
Yes, that's exactly. You don't understand the system because you wrote the rules. You write the best rules because you deeply, deeply understand the system.
That distinction is just.
Yeah.
It's massive. It changes how you should approach solving basically any problem.
It does. The source really emphasizes this. The patterns were slowly formed, not imposed, but discovered. When you impose something, you demand conformity.
Right, whether it works for all the parts or not.
Exactly. But when you discover the structure, you're just recognizing the optimal arrangement that's already kind of latent within the elements themselves. And discovery, that takes patience, observation.
I think we need a real-world example here because discovery can still sound a bit abstract.
Okay.
Like if you're building software architecture, imposing control is defining every single thing up front, and the minute a new requirement comes in, the whole system shatters. But discovery would be more like building in modules, testing how they interact, and letting the pattern that emerges, the shared language, the API, letting that become the structure.
That is a perfect illustration, and that mechanism discovery, it leads right to the bedrock of stability. Each element found its place through alignment, not force.
Alignment, not force.
Force creates tension, it creates resistance. It needs constant energy to maintain it. But alignment suggests that every part just naturally harmonizes. It does its own job perfectly while also supporting the whole.
So here's the tricky question then. How does alignment avoid just becoming a different kind of conformity?
Yeah.
Especially in, creative team or a social system?
That is the key friction point, isn't it? The reason this kind of philosophical order stays flexible is because it's based on understanding, not on obedience.
Okay, say more about that.
When the text says elements find their place, it implies an optimal fit based on what that element actually is and what it does. In a system built on alignment, challenging an inefficient rhythm isn't rebellion. It's actually a contribution to better understanding.
Whereas in a system of control, challenging the rule is just seen as insubordination.
Right, regardless of whether the rule is any good. So that distinction, understanding versus obedience, that's where the freedom really comes from. Alignment says, let's find the best way for this specific piece to fit. Control says, you must be this shape, period.
Once that rhythm and alignment is in place, the need for it becomes, well, obvious. It's not just a nice to have. It's existential.
It is. The text says, creation realized that without order, even wisdom would remain fragile. And that is a profound statement about the limits of just being brilliant.
Fragile wisdom. I like that.
Think about it. You can have the most sophisticated insight, the wisdom, but if there's no structure, no process to contain it and share it, it dissolves.
It becomes ephemeral.
It does. It relies on one person's memory or the energy from a single push. Order, in this sense, is the vessel that holds the wisdom. It lets it be shared and repeated and sustained.
That's a fantastic way to put it. So you have a brilliant idea for a business, but no stable operating procedures, no order, and your idea is a huge success for 6 months, and then it just collapses under the chaos of trying to scale.
The wisdom didn't disappear. The stability needed to execute it did. And so the benefits the text lists are all about longevity. Order gave stability. It allowed growth to continue without collapse.
Stability isn't the goal then, it's the launch pad.
It is. We always confuse rapid expansion with sustainable growth, but fast growth on a weak foundation it just makes the implosion happen faster.
We see that everywhere. Companies that scale too fast before they have stable HR or accounting, they just collapse under their own weight.
And crucially, this order is defined by its ability to adapt. The source makes a point of this, saying the system was flexible, it adapted as creation evolved.
That's the ultimate test, isn't it? A system based on rigid, imposed control is brittle. The rules have to be broken the moment anything changes.
But an intelligent framework, one that's based on discovered alignment, it can absorb new information. It can reshape itself without failing.
Which is proof that the order is functional, not dogmatic. It actually supports the change that growth requires.
And let's focus on that word confining. The source says creation did not become confined, but became reliable. Confinement limits your potential. Reliability, on the other hand, ensures that when you realize that potential, it's sustainable. It's the difference between a cage that stops a bird from flying and a strong scaffold that lets a building reach incredible heights.
The scaffold restricts where you put the materials, sure, but it enables something so much grander to be built.
Exactly. So the structure has to serve the growth, not dictate its exact shape.
Which brings us right back to us, to the listener. Because as people who build things, we almost always default to the heavy-handed approach. We default to control because, I don't know, it feels safer.
That is the psychological trap. We're afraid that structure will stifle creativity, or that if we don't micromanage every step, chaos will just take over again. As the text puts it very simply, human beings often misunderstand order, seeing it as restriction. But the ultimate counter-argument from this whole deep dive is just so definitive. But true order does not limit life, it sustains it. And if we pull together everything we've talked about, the text gives us 3 really profound distilled lessons here.
Okay, let's break those down. The actionable insights.
The first lesson is that great paradox we started with. Order supports freedom.
How so?
By setting up clear, predictable boundaries, true order removes the need to constantly manage trivial chaos. It frees up your cognitive energy, your attention, for the real creative work. If you don't have to decide where your keys go every single morning, you're free to think about much bigger things.
That speaks directly to, like, personal productivity. If your filing system or your morning routine is reliable, you don't waste mental energy fighting it. You're free to tackle complexity.
Absolutely. The second lesson gets at the ultimate goal. Stability allows growth to last. We've talked about how fast, unstable growth just leads to burnout or collapse. Longevity requires a structure that can handle the stress of scale.
So investing in the boring stuff.
The boring stuff, documentation, standardized onboarding, predictable budgets, all that has to come before the next big leap. Otherwise, growth is just accelerating the collapse.
You need the scaffolding to go higher.
You do. And finally, we come back to the core mechanism, the ultimate principle. Alignment is stronger than control.
Right. Control needs constant energy. Policing, correcting, micromanaging. But alignment, which comes from discovery and mutual understanding, is self-sustaining. It's an elegant solution.
You see this in human relationships, too. A partnership built just on transactional control, if you do X, I do Y, is so fragile. It's always being renegotiated.
Constantly policed.
But a partnership built on a shared vision, on aligned values, that's exponentially stronger. The system runs on its own internal harmony. It doesn't need all that external force.
It's the difference between a contract and a covenant. One is a rigid mandate of control. The other is a flexible framework based on alignment toward a shared purpose. The contract breaks under pressure. The covenant adapts.
So what does this all mean for us? We started with scattered movement, and through wisdom and discovery, it settled into a reliable rhythm. The goal was never maximum control. It was maximum endurance.
And that endurance came from an order that was flexible, built on understanding. And we're left with this final, almost poetic observation from the source. It connects this whole idea to, well, the nature of reality itself. What was that?
And within this growing order, the rhythm of time slowly became visible.
Wow.
Structure didn't just stabilize things, it made the whole overarching framework of time legible. Order allowed for repeatability, which is the very thing that lets us experience continuity and measure progress.
That is the big aha moment here, isn't it? The difference between imposed control and discovered alignment, that's the foundation for every single enduring system. Order isn't the absence of energy, it's the efficient channeling of it.
So if alignment really is stronger than control, if discovering a system's natural rhythm is more effective than just forcing a structure onto it, that raises an important final question for you, the listener. How might recognizing the natural rhythms, the existing patterns in your own field or your daily routine, how might that unlock greater freedom and enduring growth? What processes or structures are you currently imposing through sheer force in your business, your team, your own life that could perhaps be more effectively discovered and aligned with instead?
Something to ponder as you look at the systems in your life. We appreciate you taking this journey with us.